Guilty movie pleasure fans, for those of you that may be concerned today's episode may be too scientific for you, don't worry, that's not going to happen. In fact, things are pretty much going to get really weird, so strap your bras on your head because today we're covering weird science.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk, we talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Guilty Movie Pleasure.
Oh yes! Can we get that weird science theme song playing, Mr. Ryan? Listen to this. What'd you say it should be called, Jesse? Weird Magic?
Weird Magic. It should be called Weird Magic.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Guilty Movie Pleasures. I'm your host, Ben Begley, and with me as always...
Jesse McIntosh.
Yes, we're back 2 weeks in a row. Don't get too comfortable, because I won't be here next week, but that's okay. Moving on to today's topic, weird science. We're just gonna get right into this because there's a lot.
There's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, let's start the podcast.
We've had this requested a few times.
We have,
and it's I'd never seen it. I had seen the TV show, which weirdly enough, I know the guy who plays Anthony Michael Hall's character on the TV show. His name's John Asher. And as soon as we decided to cover this, I was like, crap, I should have texted him to be on the show. But you know, hindsight is 50-70, right?
That is what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So I had never seen this. My wife a lot of times gets on me about how, like, I'll get on her about, like, you never saw Star Wars growing up or Indiana Jones and things like that. And then I'll be like, well, I never saw...
She hates Harrison Ford.
She just has a big issue with Harrison Ford.
She hates carpenters.
And maybe because I always go, I didn't kill my wife. And she's like, oh, Jesus.
It's the only one she saw.
Fugitive.
And she's like...
I didn't kill my wife. That's my Harrison Ford.
He had a metal arm.
He had a metal arm. It's really bad. It's more like Walter Matthau and Grumpy Old Men. But anyways, now that I've kept us really on track so far, she always gets on me for not seeing a lot of John Hughes movies. I saw like the Vacation movies, but I never really saw 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, any of that growing up. Mm-hmm. And Weird Science I did not see. And the first time I saw it was 2 days ago. And I have to admit, it's hilarious. But as we discussed before the show, it ages so bad. So if we can just... we'll bring it up a couple times and try not to dwell on it too much throughout the show, but let's just get it out of the way at the top that we all can agree that Jesse and I here at Guilty Movie Pleasures do not condone the misogyny and pretty blatant racism this movie has and sexism in any way.
they use anti-gay slurs a bunch.
So there's a lot of problematic things in here. That being said, I still had fun watching it as a slice of 80s bizarre comedy where I read on IMDb that John Hughes wrote this movie in 2 days, and it shows.
Did he?
It shows. But I had a blast watching this movie, even though, and I pulled one sound clip that made me cringe so hard. Like, I felt embarrassed watching it alone. It was so dated. But Bill Paxton cracked me up. A lot of the randomness, it reminded me of the movie. This is going to sound strange. But the ending of this movie reminded me of the movie Mother with Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay, I haven't seen it, but...
If anybody's seen the movie Mother, the ending, I won't spoil it, but the ending goes batshit crazy. Not similar at all, but like it all takes place in a house and batshit things happen in this house, just like in the end of Weird Science, where batshit things happen at the end of this movie where I'm like, why are Mad Max Marauders coming in here? Why is the kid... This is insanity.
Sure.
So, maybe Mother was a loose remake of Weird Science.
I do love that the connective tissue was the house.
No, it's the weird...
No, it's the weird stuff.
It's the bonkers third act.
Yeah, you did like throw in... And it took place in a house.
I can't wait
I just want to throw that out
I can't wait for somebody to be like, you know what? That's brilliant. I've seen both.
Now that I think about it, lots of movies take places in a house.
Every movie that's taken place in a house.
What about Home Alone?
Oh, it's just like Weird Science. There's a crazy third act.
Yeah, and it's in a house.
Okay, now that you really pick apart my thesis,
I'm not picking it apart. I'm celebrating it.
Okay. Yeah. That's what we're gonna do. Hopefully, with Weird Science, is celebrate it.
Mostly the aspect of the house.
Yeah.
That's what I want to celebrate.
Having never seen it, there's a lot of movies in the 80s you can watch now, like Revenge of the Nerds, Porky's, several things, Animal House, even one of the best comedies ever made. But there's a lot of stuff in there that now with 2019 eyes, you're like, oh. But luckily it wasn't made in 2019, so you can kind of put that 39 years of whatever goggles on it.
Sure. The best
the
you can.
The carbonation of the uptime took over.
I understand. It was a bad moment.
Ruining my sentences since 1932.
And yet he's going in for more. So prepare yourself for more ruined sentences.
It's delicious. Only 5 calories.
It is. Okay. So it's problematic and like it's. You can set it aside, but it also like takes you out of it in the moment a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you have to check yourself for just a moment being like, I'm upset about this. No one should have ever done this. And then you move on from it and you just like sort of sift back into the
I think once you get past
nostalgia.
Act 1, do you think Act 1 is the hurdle you have to jump over? And then you can kind of, because it gets kind of more just zany and ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing's zany. It's just like I think the blatant racism you're talking about is the bar scene that you prepped me for a little bit.
Oh my god.
And that I think it's fitting with the rest of the like tone of the movie, what they're trying to do there, and in the context of like what else was going on in cinema at that time. I think it probably worked the same way that we appreciate the like zany house party at the end. You know what I mean? But like it just sticks out like a sore thumb.
It's also similar to Adventures in Babysitting, where they go to the blues bar and Elizabeth Shue gets up there and does a babysitting blues. But you know what? While we're talking about it, let's just play clip number 3 so we can get it out of the way, and I'll show you my reaction to it as I watched it on the couch alone.
I was nuts for the woman, man.
Oh, wait, pause it real quick. I apologize. This is Anthony Michael Hall, a skinny white kid surrounded by all African-American adult men talking about a 13-year-old girl. So that's the context you need to realize.
And he's had alcohol for the first time,
yes.
I think is what
so
they're
he's
implying
drunk,
here. He's drunk.
Talking about a 13-year-old girl and in front of adult African-American men, and he is a skinny white kid.
Let us know you labeled this clip does not age well.
Yes! And this is how I reacted on the couch.
I was nuts for the woman, man.
Oh, no.
Now you gotta believe me. I'm telling the truth here. I'm speaking to you. I mean, I was nuts for the girl. And what did it to me was these big titties she had. For a 13-year-old girl, man, she wouldn't have to worry about no titties for the rest of her life, boy. You know, she was set and she was looking good, son. That's the truth, baby.
Oh, there's so many things. There's so many things. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I feel like I can move on.
Yeah.
Because I literally, and that scene feels like it goes on forever.
It does.
And it's just, and he's like, man, you know what the bitch said to me then? And I'm like, oh no, it just keeps ramping up, and his accent gets more racist.
Yeah.
And the stuff he's saying gets more, and I just was like, oh God, just turn off your brain. Don't think of anything. Just, it's in the 80s. It's innocent, right?
Well, and then he continues to talk that way when they're in the car. Like, it just goes on for a very long time.
Forever.
Yeah.
So maybe, here's how the 2019 reboot of that would be. You could do the same thing, but then have everybody around him looking at him like, what is this guy's deal? Like, everybody else plays the voice of the audience, like, is this guy for real? Like, is this really happening?
Sure.
You know, you don't have. It's still hard to pull off, though. You'd have to delicately do it.
I don't think he needs to be impersonating a jazz man in this scene. No. I think that he can just be a drunk 15-year-old, and the scene would work just fine.
Probably better.
Yeah.
And it's also weird to me, and then I promise we'll move on. But it's weird to me that this 15-year-old kid's talking about these 13-year-old with the big old titties, and all these adult men are like, yeah, that's the weird.
So this is
that's
the
like
other
the
thing.
icing on the weird cake.
But that thematically is like baked into this entire movie. The woman they create is 23 years old, and everyone's just like pretty cool with them hanging out with her.
Yeah,
and she makes out with one of them at one point.
Yeah.
And
which apparently the kid actor in one of the takes got carried away and put his tongue in her mouth, and she slapped him and said, "You ever do that again, I'll kick you in the balls."
Well,
rightfully so.
And that's real life.
Yeah.
That's what happened in real life.
Oh,
when
in the
that
movie,
happened.
yeah.
And in the movie, everyone's just like, everyone should have reacted that way.
It made me wonder if she had like powers of suggestion over everyone. You know,
I mean, she did, right? She like a couple times erases people's memories.
But like, did she have it like in a Professor Xavier way? Like when they walk in the bar, she can be like, "This is societally acceptable."
Pretty unclear. Like they never talk about it, and they never like see evidence of it.
All the rules of this movie are very unclear.
Maybe if he had spent 3 days writing this movie, then we could have ironed out some of the like pretty obvious flaws. But yeah, like it's stuck out in this bar scene when all of these adults are like just fine with. I mean, they have fake IDs, but like they're clearly 15 years old.
Yeah,
and them being escorted around, the two of them being escorted around by one 23-year-old.
I mean, you would assume they're rich kids who hired a prostitute. Is what it would appear. Is the only, or a very attractive babysitter. Like, I don't know what scenario in your brain you could justify this.
I mean, even if you hired a prostitute, I think the statutory laws are still in place.
I love that we're harping on this in a movie where they create a woman out of a Barbie doll.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Let's get into this. Now, don't get me wrong. As we've focused on this one clip, because it was one of the more problematic scenes, but I was smiling and laughing for most of this movie.
Sure.
Because it's absurd. It's completely absurd escapism. It's not supposed to make sense. They could have maybe made it make a little more sense, but it had all the John Hughes tropes and then 4,000 other bonkers things that similar to Mother.
Yeah.
Darren Aronofsky, John Hughes.
This as well was an allegory for
the creation of
Bible.
The Bible.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I know that much.
Anyways, so let's do the plot in under 3 minutes now that we have bored half our live chat to tears.
All right, fellas.
Anybody saying that we're social justice warriors in there?
A few people. Gamer Guys Reviews it said, "Welcome to Tosh.0's. Is it racist?"
that kind of works, right?
That's great. All right, guys. Plot under 3 minutes in.
Oh God. Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we get introduced to Gary and Wyatt, and they're creepily staring at the girls' volleyball team, talking about how they'd like to shower with all of them. Just typical things, locker room talk. And then they get pantsed by Robert Downey Jr. and his buddy, and they're embarrassed, and they leave, and they're so bummed out. They're watching Frankenstein that night and hanging out at Wyatt's place. And that's when, is it Wyatt or Gary? Gary gets the idea of, that's it, we'll make a girl. So he uses his computer. They plug into somehow the phone system or the electrical plant, and they pin these clips to a Barbie doll, and it creates Kelly LeBrock, that they call Lisa, and then she starts taking them around town.
She takes them to a bar. They walk into the bar. She gives them fake IDs. Which
we already went on that.
Yep. So the bar scene happens. They come back. They wake up. They're like, everything's back to normal. They're like, oh, was that a dream? But we were in the same dream. And then they go downstairs, and she's making breakfast. And they're like, oh my God, this is real. And
and then Wyatt's wearing Lisa's outfit.
Oh, and that's when then we meet Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton
Chet comes home, his brother Chet. And Chet actually came home the night before when they were drunk. And Chet messes with them more in the morning, and he's really being set up as this antagonist. And then they go perfume shopping for their mistress, is what they say. And then she's shopping for a thong to turn on a 15-year-old boy.
Yep.
And
then Robert Downey Jr. and his buddy pour the icy on them, it's a big spectacle again.
90 seconds.
And then Lisa goes up the elevator, and they see her, and Robert Downey Jr. and his friend run after her, and they're like, you were looking at us? And she's like, no, I wasn't.
There's a party tonight at Wyatt's house.
Yeah, and then they pull up, and Robert Downey Jr.
almost run over several patrons in the process.
And so they're like, we don't want the party, and she's like, you need the party. And
then she goes over to Gary's parents' house.
Yep.
and they're like, what's the party going to be? And she's like, it's going to be a high school orgy, and it's bad that your son's been tossing off. And she goes on this whole rant, and Gary's parents freak out. And then she makes Gary's dad forget who Gary is, and then never reminds him for the rest of the movie. And then it's incredible.
She threatens him with a gun right in front of Gary.
And it turns out to be a squirt gun. Okay. And then they go. So
the party's happening.
The party happens, and then the party's the rest of the movie. Where like they're nervous in the bathroom, and then the girls come in because the RDJ is being a jerk with his friend, and they have a little banter in the bathroom. They're kind of vibing, and then they go out, and these marauders come in, and the kitchen turns blue, and then
first RDJ and his buddy try and convince him to make a girl for for them, and then a missile shows up, and then the Marauders come in, and Anthony Michael Hall threatens him, and he gets bravery, and they leave, and then the 2 girls fall in love with the 2 guys,
and then the piano player gets sucked out, and all this crazy stuff's happening where everything's getting turned back, and then it's flooding, and the parents get home, and right in time,
and Chet turns into a big pile of poop.
There we go.
Do we hit all the important parts?
I wrote down, and this is not a completely original thought because people had compared it to Mary Poppins, but it's like Mary Poppins for horny teenage boys.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's what this movie is.
Sure.
So that's where if I knew that more going into it, you just, and I figured it out very quickly.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's a horny teenage boy Mary Poppins, and it succeeds at that. It definitely does.
Yeah, I don't know if that elevator pitch, like, if I'd say, yeah, that's a great idea, run with that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
hey guys, Mary Poppins, what if we made it for like horny teenage boys?
Yeah, I mean,
sounds like a porno. Yeah. It'll have elements that seem like that, but it'll be super innocent,
very borderline pornographic, and at the same time trying to lift us up a little bit.
I do wish that the heroes were a little more active. I feel like they get to just go along this journey and do the bare minimum to achieve what they win at the end,
Sure.
Does that make sense? Like, they barely have to do anything. Even the Marauders, they know there's no real danger with the Marauders because their creations have. But it seems like maybe there could be.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what they know.
Where do those things go? Does she just make them? They do establish later on that her illusions disappear after time.
Right. I mean, we established that right after the first night when everything is back to normal.
You're right.
But
there's a lot to unpack in this film. I missed certain details.
There's an incredible lack of curiosity from the guys who don't really care about the mechanics of how this is all working. And what they can and can't do, and what role this woman does or doesn't play in their lives. Yeah. To your point, they are just along for the ride, and they're not doing any of the work of figuring out what the hell is happening right now.
Yeah.
And to the point where at the end, and I'm going to jump all the way, but we can come back. We can circle back on this.
No, let's just end the podcast right now.
Yeah, great. Okay. So put 5 minutes on the timer. No, so at the very end, when they get girlfriends and they're like, we're going to have to break it to Lisa that we have girlfriends. They seem to think that
they still haven't understood.
Yeah, they don't get what is going on here.
Is that a plot hole or just a realistic portrayal of how dense teenage boys can be?
I think maybe a little bit of both. Yeah. It would probably help fill in some of the gaps if you made them more curious.
It seems like this was a trope in the 80s where reality happens and you just accept it, I feel like nowadays when a movie is created, we have to justify. We almost have swung in the other direction where we over justify things.
Yes.
Did you see Happy Death Day?
No.
Well, the sequel, Happy Death Day to You, this doesn't spoil anything. You've already seen the trailers.
It's very much like Mother.
It's a lot like pretty much every film's like Mother, with the lowercase m and the exclamation point. The second one explains and justifies how the first one happened, and it's cool, but I kind of like the first one better because there wasn't an explanation.
Sure, sure. And if it were real life, the entire movie would be them asking questions, which is not what I'm suggesting.
Just a little bit in that first act of what is happening?
Would just have loved for them to wonder what her relationship to them is, because what it seems like they both think that they created her to be their girlfriend. And what is confusing about that is they both think that about themselves, and they're both fine with this tripod of a relationship.
Yeah, it's like when I was a kid and I had a stack of 3 Playboys me and my buddy Corey bought at a yard sale, and we'd lend them to each other.
Yeah.
In hindsight, that's already weird enough.
Yeah.
Let alone sharing a sex bot is basically what they've built.
Yeah. And
that they don't have sex with, do they?
Don't know.
Because both of them had the same dream, and then both of them, I guess, hooked up with, made out with her in their dreams. We were talking about before the show, why not just create a second?
They needed a second one.
Just create a second. It seemed really easy.
Yeah. And, day 4 of writing this script, John Hughes would have come up with that, I think. And it would have solved, I think, just a small issue.
Yeah, because really, like,
what is going on.
right away, it's like I like that. I like that she starts to get more agency towards the end. Like, I'm trying to teach you boys how to grow up and be men. But in the beginning, it's like, oh, they own me. I'm going to turn them on with the thong and stuff.
Right.
It's super weird.
Right.
I don't know what I'm supposed to believe here.
And I don't know where that turn came when she decided to start helping them.
Somewhere around hour 33 of the second day before hour 48 when he said, done. Let's play clip number 2, because this is when Wyatt gets Gary gets the idea.
You know, it's not a bad idea. What? Making a girl. Actually making a girl. Just like Frankenstein. Except cuter.
The way they make the girl is amazing and could only exist in the 80s, because there's so much incredible suspension of disbelief, because Frankenstein, built out of several human parts, a brain that was still living, or a newly deceased brain put into the body, right?
Yeah.
And then electrocuted back to life, so it kind of makes sense.
Sure.
Comparatively.
Yeah. Yes.
But like Mother.
Right.
So anyways, but this one, as far the scene where they...
Just like Frankenstein.
But cuter. This is one of my favorite tropes of the 80s and 90s whenever they did hacker stuff, specifically in the movie Hackers, where computer programs are weird Virtua Boy landscapes where it's just like colored lines and boxes and eyeballs, and E = MC square floats by, and like, what program are they using?
Right. How did they get there from MS-DOS?
That is not MS-DOS. That is not Linux.
No, that's nothing I'm familiar with.
There's no Mac OS I've ever seen. And it's just like floating. And I love when they're just intense. It's one of my favorite tropes of the 80s where they're like, I'm almost in. And it's like, as if computers are like this virtual landscape that we can see instead of just boring code.
Right. Honestly, like, what should have happened in this movie was the kids who created this woman should have been given a grant to work in some like scientific lab.
Why didn't they tie this into the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And we realize that Robert Downey Jr. in this movie is actually young Tony Stark. And then Tony Stark gives them a grant to then create life model decoys, which is in the comics. And then the LMDs are the issue instead of Ultron.
Sure.
And then that can lead to Ultron because he has to create Ultron to stop the LMDs.
Or, and hear me out, what if this
tied into... I went super nerd on that.
What if this tied into Mother?
You had me at what if it tied into Mother? Oh yes, I love it. So it's incredible. They run out of juice, so they pick up their phone and slam it on.
Did they invent the internet?
I think they did.
That's what they did, right?
They slam it on another thing that then ties into, I guess, another computer system. There's no explanation, and I love it because there's none.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's hilarious. It's that typical scene of like the power plant going nuts, and they're like, what's happening? Somebody's stealing all our juice, you know?
Yeah.
They invented the internet. You're
they
right.
did.
Because as far as I know, it wasn't around in 80, whenever this came out. I was like 13 when it came out. And then from there, they have the Barbie doll hooked up to two tiny wire clamps.
Very important question that, for me, this is the most important question that wasn't answered and should have been addressed.
Yeah.
This household was Chet and and what was the kid's name?
Gary.
And Gary. Chet and Gary. Where did this
Wyatt? Sorry, I keep getting him confused.
Chet and Wyatt. Where did the Barbie doll come from?
Maybe they bought one.
Whose Barbie doll was it?
Maybe they bought one. I don't know. Maybe they wanted G.I. Joe to have a girlfriend.
Because I can tell you for sure,
asked for it for Christmas
in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, no parents were buying their sons Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
2019, sure, maybe, but not in the 80s. It did not happen.
Yeah.
So I want to know where they acquired it and for what purpose, and was it for this purpose?
Was it specifically for this purpose? And why didn't they acquire more for later on?
Why didn't they acquire
instead
different
of
ones?
Bringing a Pershing Missile. Pershing Missile? Pershing Missile. I'm Sean Connery now. So they create Lisa. She comes to life, and I love that the door says, "I break for girls" or something like that, and it blows up, and she appears. And immediately this could go one way or the other. It could go full on porn or the way it goes. We're somewhere in the middle. And we have the bar scene that happens, which we've talked to. Oh, I forgot when they're designing the boobs and they're like going in like the design process. And they say, like, should she be smart? And one of the options is boring dipshit.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, it's incredible. Oh,
it was like the de-evolver.
Yeah, the devolver. Yeah.
Yeah, from last week.
And at first they were just going to create her in the virtual world so they could like talk to her and things like that. And I almost want a 2-hour cut of this movie where it starts that way and then they figure out how to build her in real life.
Yeah.
I just want a director's cut of this movie.
Do you?
No, I'm good. It's funny how it is. So then they go to the bar. We already talked about it a bunch. Chet comes home and Gary's drunk and Chet's messing with him. And can we play clip number 4? You could. There's a lot going on in that clip. There's a lot of Foley.
Some high pitch.
You die.
He pukes, you die. Funny enough, when I took my buddy for his bachelor party, we took an Uber home, and he was wrecked on the way home. And the driver was getting a little nervous. And, he at first was like, as long as you give me a 5-star rating. But then as my buddy got more and more nauseous, he finally was fed up and he looked at me and said, I was like, Jesus, you're getting a 4.5-star rating now, buddy.
Well, I don't blame him.
His driving was great, though.
Yeah.
But that's actually a true story, aside from the he pukes, he dies. Because my buddy got out of the car, and the second he got out of the Uber, he barfed all over the sidewalk.
God bless him for holding it
He
in.
held it in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that would have been that would have been a stain on my otherwise perfect Uber record.
You know that I am governor of the city, no visual puke on TV.
You are. Wait, what?
Yeah, you heard
That's
me.
the strangest. Let me just make sure.
I was trying to
Governor
figure
of the
out,
city, no visual puke on TV.
I guess I'd be mayor of the city.
I think you would just be the spokesperson for anti.
No, I'm
Showing
an
puke.
elected official.
You're an elected official.
Mayor
By other
of the
people
city.
who are adverse to showing puke on.
Yes, they know that I'm the #1 advocate for such.
Every time.
Yes.
Team America was the best.
Oh my God.
Because as I was watching that, I was like, Jesse's going to hate this.
So when we sat down to watch Team America, you and I together, and you had suggested that we watch it, and that scene starts to
Escalate.
unfold.
Yep.
And I sort of felt what was going to happen, and I looked at you and I pointed at the TV and I said,
You die.
But then he puked so long
he did.
that you kind of forgave me.
I was waiting for it to end, and by the time it ended, I forgot what my threat was.
It was so long.
That's how it went.
God, I love Bill Paxton in this movie. I know you and I might disagree on that, but I think he is hilarious and obnoxious, but super funny. Some of his mannerisms and like when he turns around and double elbows his door open, that was amazing. Like just this spin and boom. He's just this total bro. His haircut with like slick back and then a flat top.
Yeah.
Everything about him screams perfect 80s douchebag to me.
It was hard for me to like separate it from the Bill Paxton that like big love Bill Paxton. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
But he's just doing like he's kind of doing a lot in this movie.
And I loved it.
That particular move where he opens the door, that was my favorite part of Bill Paxton's performance.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I just felt like he was pushing a little bit. But it fit the tone. It was fine.
I thought every scene he came in, I was like, yes, Chet's back. Chet was my jam. So, like, even when Wyatt comes in wearing Lisa's outfit and Bill Paxton doesn't notice yet, and he flings the eggs onto the ceiling from the frying pan and smashes them that way, and he's like, here, you can have some breakfast. He's like such a dick.
But for someone who's so concerned about the tidiness of the house, like that was a little bit out of character. I think.
And I forget there was some lead up that he said, when he's like, oh, you're wearing, why is Wyatt in Lisa's outfit for so long? Why doesn't he change?
I don't know.
Maybe he was comfortable, but it looks tight. It looks very uncomfortable and like it might ride up a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it's for the visual gag.
I mean, it for sure is
That's
for
it.
the visual gag, but he wore it downstairs, and
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why, because he
And
knew
then
what
Chet's-
would happen if he ran into Chet.
Yeah, Chet would eviscerate him, and he
Yeah.
does. And he's like, man, next thing you know, you're going to put bras on your head. And then Wyatt breaks the fourth wall, a la Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
I like that part.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that worked.
Yeah, that worked.
Yeah, I felt good about it.
I want to see somebody cosplay as Wyatt dressed as in Lisa's outfit somewhere.
Okay, yes. Yes.
Do you think that people would get it, or just be like, why is that person wearing their underwear and a belly shirt?
I think it would take some explaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're far enough removed now.
Those are
and
the best cosplays.
I'm not sure it's iconic enough.
There we go. My Halloween costume. I have a lot more body hair. It'll be horrifying. Could you imagine if I wore that into here on the show?
I've already imagined.
You've already- Oh! So then they go shopping. I've noticed John Hughes has a lot of tropes. Like the perfume shopping and the thong shopping reminded me of the Christmas Vacation scene with Chevy Chase. And the party scene, like there's a lot, and the fantasy sequence in Christmas Vacation, and the end of Mother. Right. You're waiting for it.
Yeah.
So I love what Lisa's shopping, and specifically listen to the old lady. So first off, she's in a lingerie store where the oldest, prudest lady imaginable happened to get a job there.
Yeah.
So like imagine you walk into a Victoria's Secret and it's your super conservative grandma is working there. And this is her, specifically listen to her noises as Lisa asked this question.
If you were a 15-year-old boy, would these turn you on? I think so too. I'll take one.
Play it again, it's so good. Play it one more time.
If you were a 15-year-old boy, would these turn you on? I think so too. I'll take one.
Her face is saying no.
Right.
But her noises are saying yes.
Yeah. I mean,
If you take that, if I told you she's talking to a 15-year-old boy right now,
Right.
and he is nervous as all hell and like about to just explode with hormones, it would sound the same, right?
it probably would.
Would these turn you on?
I'm
weirdest
gonna flip it on you. If I told you that she was holding up literally anything in the world, would that still make sense?
No.
You don't think so? If I held up anything in the world and I said, if you were a 15-year-old boy, would this turn you on?
Oh, yeah,
Is there anything I could be holding that you would say no to?
From Lisa holding it or just in general?
I mean, sure, from Lisa holding it.
oh, yeah, no. Everything.
Nothing, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. She
All right.
could be like, these giant sweatpants.
Yeah, you don't have to.
These MC Hammer pants. Would this turn a 15-year-old boy on?
You don't have to take a survey. Yeah, you're fine.
I have a theory that this was a background actor who just kept saying lines, and they were like, hey, we'll have to bump you up in SAG and pay you more if you say a line, so you can't say one. And so she's actually saying, I don't know, because if you listen, it sounds like, I don't know.
Or where I thought you were going with that is that she just like couldn't help but react audibly, and they were like, "Stop talking!"
And that was the one take where
And
they're
she
just
was
like, God.
she was like, "All right, I won't talk."
I want that to be my text message whenever anybody texts me. Imagine if you're sitting in like an important meeting, like, all right, everybody, I think we got to get the numbers up this year. And does anybody have any questions? Oh, sorry, that's just my phone.
3 people would be like, "Is that from Weird Science? Is that the old lady in the lingerie store from Weird Science?"
I just want the rest of this 12 minutes we have to be this sound
And
clip.
you're like, "How come you didn't get my cosplay, but you understood the?" All right.
Okay. At the mall, Lisa leads Robert Downey Jr. is hilarious in this too.
Yeah.
He's such a jerk, but you can already see, like, it's amazing when you see people and Bill Paxton too, when you see these super mega stars at the infancy of their careers, and being like, you can tell watching just Robert Downey Jr. as this total one-dimensional jerk in this movie.
Yeah.
That he's gonna blow up because he has a charisma about him, even in the few scenes he has.
Most
and I don't
definitely.
know if that's because I'm equating it to, all the movies I've seen him in, but you can still see that spark.
I felt
you
that
know,
too.
right?
Yeah.
The second he shows up, I was like, ah!
Just like a magnetic presence.
Right?
Definitely.
He's so good, man.
Yeah.
He's so good. And she leads them away. She invites him to Wyatt's party, and then Wyatt and Gary come rolling, just speeding through, and you see like 15 people run for their lives, and it's so, you know, we're teaching children to drive very recklessly at malls.
Yes.
He pulls up on the sidewalk, they drive off. It's kind of a Ferris Bueller-ish. All the car stuff for me reminds me of like the joyriding in Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, I did want to mention also, like, I sometimes have a hard time being a passenger in cars of people that I don't know.
Yeah.
I would never get into a car of a woman that I just created from the internet.
And in a car that she just
in a
created.
car that she created. I would never. I would be like, let's walk.
Do you think they programmed the ability to create things, or was that like a side effect?
So this is we like sort of mentioned it in the beginning how this should be called weird magic,
Yeah.
and not weird science.
Yeah.
There's nothing scientific going on here. Even like from the moment they create her,
Yeah.
like that is not scientific. Like there's nothing science about what's happening
No.
here, and nothing that you could even explain away as like, oh, it's a little bit like we used our liquids from our beakers from science class.
Yeah, they
like,
don't even.
has nothing to do with anything.
They don't do the thing that you love in movies where they over-explain something in a confusing way just to make it sound scientific.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
I can't remember if you love that or hate that.
Oh, not a fan.
That's right, you hate that. I love it. That's right.
Yeah.
I was speaking from my own point of view.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
No.
Don't put that. Don't put that. Nope. That is not my opinion on
How
it.
dare you?
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like you could make a sequel to this and make it a horror film where like she has become Skynet, where like she realizes that Wyatt and Gary have not learned anything,
Right.
and that all men are terrible, and that they wanted to own her, and so then she just starts creating chaos. Like, let's do that. Let's make a sequel to Weird Science.
Ex Machina.
Weird Science. Yeah, it's Ex Machina.
yeah.
You're right. It is Ex Machina. It's a
Little bit.
great movie. So let's play this one. This is when this is good. Good call. So this is when Lisa goes to tell Gary's parents that he's going to have a party, and she tells him off about how good of a boy he is, how he gets good grades, and they never compliment him. Let's play clip number 6.
Have you ever wondered how sad it is that your son's only sexual outlet is tossing off to magazines in the bathroom?
Oh, Gary! I never tossed off to anything.
You told me you were combing your hair.
I was. Shut up. I never.
The water's running all day long.
Shut up. Anything. I never tossed. Shut up. I never tossed.
I don't know what it is.
Shut up!
I love that the dad's only tactic is just to repeatedly
Shut up.
just yell "shut up" until his head explodes.
I did wonder if toss off was a term that people used, and it makes me believe that it wasn't the way that he kept like going like this.
Yeah.
Like, let me explain to you what toss off is. It's,
Yeah. Well, I think the mom would have never got it unless she went toss off, you
Right,
know?
yeah.
And this scene plays out every teenage boy's nightmare is like, and is every teenage boy's, in my mind, every teenage boy's nightmare of how their parents would react to that.
Sure,
Like
yeah.
the mom just being like, I can't believe you have normal sexual feelings. No, you
Yeah.
were a sinner. Because especially in the 80s, like that, we were in the time of like, basically toss off madness, like reefer madness, where it was like, you're going to go blind. You're someone you love is going to get in a car accident if you wank it. Okay.
Sure. Shut up.
Shut up. The dad is
You said you were combing your hair.
It's so good. And that scene's hilarious to me because it just plays out as a nightmare scene for teenagers. And
The nightmare specifically being a creation of your computer outing your
you.
masturbation habits to your parents.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Everybody, haven't you had that? Everybody's had that nightmare. It's a recurring nightmare. And the parents are hilarious. Then she pulls out a gun. That at first, it's weird how like in 2019 we look at like how willy-nilly guns were used in the 80s for comedic effect, and now you're like, holy shit, she's pointing a gun at his parents.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because it's a squirt gun. But was it at the time, or did she make it a squirt gun later?
I don't know, because then later it's a real gun. But they like that was another
Weird
moment,
magic.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
where I really like became aware
Yeah.
of the time and space that I was in and the time and space that this was created in. Because I was like,
Yeah.
what is this movie about to be?
Dude, it's like Parenthood. If you rewatch the movie Parenthood with Steve Martin, there's a scene where he has a nightmare that his daughter's boyfriend is going to be a sniper on top of a building. And you're just like, what? And he wakes up like, that was a crazy thought. And now you're like, oh, Jesus, you know?
Or Ghost Dad.
Ghost.
Bill Cosby's a fun dad that's a ghost and comes through telephones.
Who knew that Invisible Man or what was it? What was the movie with Kevin Bacon? Not Invisible Man. Oh, why can't I remember? Hollow Man.
Oh, Hollow Man. Yeah,
Hollow Man is the real story of Bill Cosby if he was invisible. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. There's always room for the jello. Okay.
Hollow Man's a lot like Mother, if you think about it.
Everything's a lot like Mother. So they go to this. They have this party. Oh, first she makes the dad forget Gary exists, which is hysterical to me because the mom keeps going, bringing up photos. Gary, it's our son, and he's like, I have no idea who you're talking about. And that recurring joke is super funny to me when they call it back later. Let's play. This is when the party's in full swing. The rest of the movie's the party. Which means we're halfway through the movie, and the entire rest of the movie is this bonkers party, which I'm fine with. And this is them in the bathroom nervous, because apparently he has IBS. Wyatt has IBS.
How's your stomach? It's a little better. If you're gonna float an air biscuit, let me know, okay? Float a what? If you're gonna fart, if you're gonna squeeze cheese, let me know, okay? I'll hit the fan.
If you're gonna fart, you're gonna squeeze cheese. I've never heard float an air biscuit before.
Never in my life.
And it's my new favorite phrase.
Float an air biscuit.
I want to teach it to my daughter. Be like, Daisy, instead of be like, Daisy, did you toot? I'll be like, Daisy, you float an air biscuit?
It's a mouthful.
She'll be like, no, Daddy, you float an air biscuit. I think it'll be great. Take that to preschool and really confuse everybody.
Yeah. Teacher toss off also.
I'm waiting to get a call from the teachers.
Yeah, just go ahead and turn that fan on, man.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to ask. You don't have to have a conversation about it.
The other thing is, so the girls come in after Wyatt has taken a dump. And it's a tiny bathroom. So I'm close to you. I'm close to other friends of mine.
Sure.
I've never stood in the same room as you while you took a shit.
No.
I've not even my best friend since first grade have I ever been in the same bathroom. Or to me, there's there's a proximity thing when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing that they're just hanging out in the bathroom as he full on dumps it out.
They have a special relationship.
They're very close.
They hang out while
they
each
share
other
sex bots.
Poops. They shared at sex bots.
And I don't care how many candles you lit. I love the girls when they show up. The girls they have a crush on. None of them make a reference to. It would have been funny if there was like, it smells like a birthday cake in here or something, like some kind of reference where they're like, oh yeah, but they're maybe they don't have any sense of smell.
Or what they should have been like was, did someone drop a water biscuit? Just to tie it all the way around. But what they actually should have been like was, why are the two of you in there?
Yeah, it's like,
because again, like that's small spaces, and it's not like a public bathroom where you can just like hang out.
That's where they share their moment though with the two girls that they've had a crush on.
Which again, they don't leave. They're asked to leave, and they're like, "Gotcha." And they go into the shower.
Let's skip to Wyatt's grandparents, who I didn't know existed till 51 minutes into the movie. But boy, is their intro hilarious.
I have a wonderful idea, Henry. After dinner, why don't we stop by and visit with Wyatt? I hate to think of his being alone at home tonight.
Doesn't he have anything to read?
Well, I don't know, dear. But you know, nothing's more important to a teenage boy than his grandparents.
We'll drop by.
Oh, good.
It's so amazing. That scene is hilarious.
They're great.
Nothing's more important to a teenage boy than his grandparents.
Also, like, shouts to the grandparents for choosing a day that their own child isn't home to stop by.
It's so funny.
They're like, let's swing by when my daughter isn't
it's
there.
It's such a funny out of nowhere setup that I love. And when they come in and they freak out and then she freezes them in a closet.
Yeah.
The grandparents are hysterical.
They also never get unfrozen.
As far as we know.
There
should have been a post-credit scene where they just open it up and they're still in there
like, who's Gary?
Who's Gary? So there's all kinds of crazy stuff happens where Lisa realizes she needs to ramp things up so that they can prove that they're manly, that they have courage to these girls that they like. And so the logical conclusion would be to have mutant marauders come in with like a bolted on face mask that's bleeding, the guy from Hills Have Eyes, the dude from Mad Max, the Road Warrior, just really shake things up. A girl on a chain and dog collar who actually turns out to be very polite.
She's very polite.
Very polite. You have a lovely place. Let's play clip number 9 where she's trying to get them out of the closet while these guys are wreaking havoc in the living room.
This is an excellent chance for you to prove your bravery and courage.
Those are outdated concepts, all right?
Don't let John Wayne hear you say that.
The man is dead, Lisa, okay?
Well, so are you if you don't deal with this situation.
No thanks.
Gary, do you feel like a chicken?
What, if I could shoot an egg on my ass right now, I would.
So they're real big wusses. But we forgot. We got to back up a little bit because Robert Downey Jr. and his buddy coerce them into being like, look, you can... This is a moment that's a little problematic.
Yes.
By a little, I mean very.
Yes.
Hey, listen, we'll trade you our girlfriends like they're baseball cards if you create us one solo sex bot.
Not even, they want to trade them for Lisa.
Yeah,
They're
right.
also okay with sharing Lisa. What is going on?
It's so weird. Oh, it's so weird.
Why are pairs of guys just totally okay with sharing the sex bot?
Yeah, I don't... It's, it's the 80s.
I guess.
So instead of creating a sex bot, they forget to put a doll there, and instead there's a Time magazine with a missile, and a missile just shows up in the house, and it's a fully live active nuke, it seems like.
Yep.
And that's before the Marauders. So things, like I said, just like Mother.
Things
it's
are going
crazy.
crazy, yeah.
The kitchen's all blue. There's blue cookies. It's all going nuts. Chet comes in from Duck Hunt. So then they get the Marauders out. Everything goes back to normal. They come in the morning. Oh, no, Chet comes in when the missile's still there, and he's pissed off. And this is his exchange with Lisa.
You got everybody synced to the same bullshit story.
This isn't bullshit. This is a Pershing Missile chip.
It's Chet. My name is Chet. And I didn't think it was a whale's dick, honey.
His burp is so gross. So then he gets transformed. We only have a few minutes, but like 1 minute. He gets transformed into what looks like a giant frog mixed with a pile of poop.
Right.
And I was not expecting that.
Big old pile of water biscuits.
He feels bad, and he apologizes to Wyatt and Gary, and the whole house gets remade back to normal right before the parents come home. And, now she's the gym teacher, and all the boys react as anybody would if a hot gym teacher shows up. Oh, man! And pass out all at once. And that's the end of this movie.
She has more lessons to teach,
She's more lessons to these. It's, I want to see a sequel. where it's the horror film.
Weirder science.
Weirder magic.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for today about weird science. Let us know what you thought about the movie when you saw it back in the day versus how you think it ages now. Also, send us some horror film suggestions because we are going to be talking all horror all month long in October for Halloween. Until next time, where can they find you, Jesse?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Too Much Jesse, and for Sketch at The Prom Losers.
You can find me at the Ben Begley. You can find us at Guilty Movie Guys. And keep your suggestions coming in. Keep your comments on the iTunes and YouTube pages. It helps with our viewership, and we appreciate each and every one of you, even the constructive criticism, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Until next time, what is your guilty movie pleasure?
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.